Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking a really meticulous exploration, kind of a true unpacking, of one of the most, well, successful and resilient career paths in modern Hollywood, Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
Our mission is to really analyze the sources you've shared to understand how he pulled off this complete professional metamorphosis. I mean, transforming from, a beloved 1980s teen heartthrob into this Emmy-winning director, a major producer, and a critically acclaimed dramatic actor. Auteur, even.
It really is an extraordinary study in sustained reinvention. I mean, the path from child stardom is notoriously tricky, right?
Yeah.
Full of cautionary tales.
Yeah.
Yet Bateman didn't just survive it. He actually achieved this level of critical respect and creative control. It's just far beyond what anyone would have predicted from his early fame.
Mm-hmm.
He spent decades perfecting the signature straight man persona, the grounded, perpetuous sort of exasperated anchor in all the chaos. And that role, it actually masked and then eventually kind of facilitated his really deep ambition to control the narrative from behind the camera.
I still find it hard to fully reconcile, the goofy, energetic teen wolf with the guy who directed those terrifyingly tense, tightly controlled episodes of Ozark.
Exactly.
The distance between those 2 points is just staggering, and that's precisely where the knowledge lies, I think.
Yeah.
We're going to distill the pivotal moments, the strategic roles he took, the directorial achievements that explain why Bateman remains just utterly relevant and powerful across, 5 decades now?
Yeah, easily.
You'll hear about the deep financial anxiety that really underpinned his entire childhood, how he snagged this massive Directors Guild of America record before he could even legally drink, and how he turned all that chaos into, creative control.
Precisely. So if you've ever wondered how the actor who, made his name on the Hogan Family became this executive producer managing a whole multi-podcast media empire.
Yeah. Stick with us. We really have to dive deep into his choices, especially how he adapted that dry, sort of analytical acting style. The Fixer, too, ultimately become a, full-fledged filmmaker.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, the foundational context. Jason Kent Bateman, born in Rye, New York, back in 1969. The family moved west out to California when he was just 4, though his heritage is kind of interesting, bit international. His mother, Victoria Elizabeth, she was a flight attendant from Shrewsbury over in the UK.
Right.
And his roots are definitely in the industry. His father, Kent Bateman, was already an American actor, writer, director, and of course his older sister is the famous actress Justine Bateman.
And that family dynamic, that's really the essential starting point, isn't it? For understanding Bateman's drive. The sources, they make it pretty starkly clear that the money, substantial earnings that Jason and Justine were bringing in from their TV shows, it was described as a significant income source for the whole family.
Right.
This wasn't, the typical story of a kid with a hobby. This was fundamental. This was their livelihood. That context, it changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How we perceive his early career, that enthusiasm. He wasn't just enjoying success. He was living under this immense pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a really young age, Bateman carried this anxiety of keeping the family financially afloat, which means he was just relentlessly driven to book the next role, stay commercially viable. I mean, that is a heavy, heavy burden for a child.
And that burden, it was coupled with a real lack of personal autonomy. His father acted as his manager until Jason turned 20. So you got a decade, basically, of intense professional pressure combined with this lack of agency, which is a crucial detail because, as we'll see later, it seems to directly feed into his need for creative control as an adult director.
That makes sense.
It explains the hustle he had to maintain right from that very first Golden Grams commercial back in 1980.
Wow, Golden Grams. Okay. And that commercial led pretty directly into this rapid-fire success on the early 1980s television circuit. He landed on Little House on the Prairie from 81 to 82 as James Cooper, one of the orphan kids adopted by the Ingalls family, which, that's already a pretty high-profile gig.
Oh, absolutely. And that quickly transitioned into him playing the cheeky, sort of slightly older bad boyfriend, Derek Taylor, on the really popular sitcom Silver Spoons from 82 to 84.
Right, I remember him on that.
Yeah, and the sources highlight that his popularity in that specific role was just so high. He was charming, funny, very photogenic, that it immediately led to them creating his own starring vehicle, the NBC sitcom It's Your Move. That ran from 84 to 85. Hollywood saw the drawing power and just, bam, responded instantly.
And then the breakthrough role, the one that really solidified his status as one of those definitive mid-'80s teen idols, David Hogan on the Hogan Family.
Right.
Originally called Valerie, then Valerie's Family. That series ran from 1986 right through 1991, basically spanning his entire adolescence on screen. He was truly a household name by, 17?
Absolutely. It's the kind of success that usually locks an actor into a very specific, often pretty limiting persona. But here's the jaw-dropping detail, the thing that really separates Bateman from so many of his peers.
Yeah.
While starring in that series, still a teen idol,
Yeah.
he directed 3 episodes of The Hogan Family.
At that age. Wow. And this wasn't just, a fun side project.
Not at all.
He set a major historical precedent. Directing those episodes at the age of 18 made him the youngest ever director granted entry into the prestigious Directors Guild of America, the DGA.
Right, 18. Which is, just to understand the magnitude of that, you have to recognize that DGA membership is, highly regulated. It traditionally requires years of accredited experience, mentorship.
It's a serious union.
Totally.
Yeah.
The DGA essentially safeguards the whole profession.
Sure.
So for an 18-year-old actor who's still legally considered a minor in many ways, to not only get a directorial assignment, but to actually receive the accreditation, it's virtually unprecedented.
Yeah.
It speaks to either, extraordinary pull from the network, or maybe more likely, just an astonishing display of maturity, command, and just inherent talent that convinced the union officials he was actually ready.
It really shows that the need for control, that desire to be the manager, not just the managed, it was manifesting even before he was technically an adult.
Exactly.
He wasn't just waiting around for his lines. He was already thinking about shaping the entire production.
Exactly. But, there's a flip side to that intense focus, which is the classic child star dilemma. The education gap.
Right.
We know Bateman attended Brighton Hall School, but he never actually completed his formal education. He specifically failed to finish his finals because he was busy filming, the notorious 1987 sequel, Teen Wolf 2.
Ah, yes, Teen Wolf 2.
So he was choosing professional necessity, the immediate work, over that longer-term education, likely driven again by that underlying financial pressure we talked about.
Teen Wolf 2. I mean, that feels like the culmination of the teen idol era for him. And as we're about to discuss, maybe the starting line for the beginning of his professional wilderness years.
Yeah, if part 1 was that rapid ascent, largely fueled by external pressure, part 2 is kind of the inevitable correction and, crash. That post-teen idol slump, it's almost a predictable pitfall in Hollywood.
For sure.
Teen Wolf 2, it resulted in massive international recognition. I mean, everyone knew who he was, but the sources confirm it was just a critical and box office failure. It essentially extinguished his cinematic teen career almost before it really began.
And that failure basically kicked off the turbulent 1990s, which for Bateman, it was a professional wilderness, just a string of these short-lived attempts to recapture the magic. He had a series of shows that just failed to connect with audiences. Simon, Chicago Suns, George and Leo, Some of My Best Friends.
Right.
None of those projects lasted more than a single season.
And this is the period where that pressure must have truly, truly peaked. He wasn't the guaranteed cash cow of the 80s anymore. He was competing in the very fickle world of adult sitcoms.
Yeah.
That early career anxiety, the need to always secure the next job for income, was now just a full-blown professional reality.
Yeah.
He was still taking the odd directing job, like he helmed an episode of Two of a Kind in '99.
Okay.
But the main focus of his acting career had really stalled out.
And this professional collapse, it coincided with, and maybe even fueled, some deep personal struggles. The biographical material, it's pretty candid, detailing his struggle with alcohol and drugs throughout the entire 1990s. That decade sounds like just chaos.
Yeah, it really does. It was a decade where maybe he threw off the shackles of structure. I mean, after years of being managed by his dad, defined by these very structured sitcom sets, this period almost seems like a necessary, maybe destructive, but necessary attempt at self-definition.
He summed up that entire decade with that quote that became instantly famous, describing the period as, "It was like risky business for 10 years. That's not just drinking a few wine coolers and being a bit wild. That sounds like sustained, reckless abandon, probably fueled by the stress of that early success and then the subsequent rejection."
And this raises a really crucial question, I think, about his career architecture. Was that risky business decade simply a failure? Or was it maybe a necessary burnout that ultimately reset his career expectations?
Interesting.
It was the first time he wasn't being managed by someone else, right? And that lack of external control, it created chaos, but paradoxically, maybe it created the space for a new, more grounded persona to eventually emerge. He couldn't be the enthusiastic teenager anymore. He kind of had to become the exasperated adult.
The professional pivot, it seems to have started around 2002. He came back to feature films, but more in a supporting capacity, notably in The Sweetest Thing, playing a sort of frisky sibling. It felt like a step away from that leading man pressure back into just reliable character work.
And that stability, well, it led directly to the role that would completely redefine him. Michael Bluth in Arrested Development. When he was cast in 2003, it was just a massive shift.
Right.
Michael Bluth is like the quintessential competent adult, forced to navigate the financial and emotional mayhem of his unbelievably dysfunctional family.
This role just became his specialty, didn't it? The anchor, the center of sanity. This feels like Bateman's first great attempt at career control, but disguised as family management within the show.
Totally.
The show's unique style, the fast cuts, the dense running jokes, the narration, it absolutely relied on his deadpan reaction shots, his dry timing. He really became the audience surrogate.
And the show itself is such a fascinating paradox of success, isn't it? Critically, it was basically flawless.
Yeah.
He won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a TV series, musical, or comedy in 2004, got an Emmy nomination in 2005.
Huge accolades.
Huge.
Yep.
Yet, despite all that praise, the series never achieved high ratings during its original Fox run. It ended in 2006. It was just too dense, maybe too self-referential for mainstream network TV at that time.
But it proved its value later, didn't it? Became the ultimate cult hit. And its Netflix revival, well, that's a major cultural milestone.
Oh, absolutely.
When it came back in 2013, and then later for that fifth season in 2018-2019 with the original cast, it just cemented his status as this critical darling and earned him another Emmy nomination for that new fourth season. It really, truly was the job that gave him a new, stable adult life back in the industry.
Right. So once Bateman had solidified this new professional identity, with the critical respect he earned from Michael Bluth, he was perfectly positioned to transition back to the big screen. But this time, not really as a leading man, but as this sort of indispensable supporting player. He basically became the industry's comedy gold standard for exasperated realism.
Yeah, if you needed a character who was, like, absurdly professional, stuck in an absurd situation, you hired Bateman. The best example just has to be Pepper Brooks, right?
Right.
The ESPN 8, the Ocho commentator in Dodgeball, a true underdog story, 2004.
It's classic.
It's a small role, but it's perfect. He delivers this professional sports commentary with just utter seriousness about a ridiculous low-stakes game. The sources note that performance is constantly quoted, referenced. It just shows the huge impact his supportive character work could have.
And this persona, this controlled competence, it made him a constant presence in those mid-2000s comedies. It led to professional partnerships, notably reuniting with Vince Vaughn in films like Starsky and Hutch, also 2004, and The Breakup in 2006.
He was reliable, he was funny, and you just knew he knew exactly where the camera was.
Exactly.
What's crucial, though, I think, is that he didn't let himself get pigeonholed only into those broad comedies. He was signaling his seriousness, his versatility. At the same time, he was taking these key supporting roles in highly respected dramatic and indie films. You think about Juno in 2007.
Great film.
Hancock in 2008, alongside Will Smith, and the critically acclaimed Best Picture nominee Up in the Air in 2009.
Right. And those roles really demonstrated that the deadpan analytical straight man worked just as well when he was delivering a sharp, dramatic point as it did when he was setting up a punchline.
Yeah.
His presence just adds this weight, this gravity to any scene. It makes the audience listen, even if he's just delivering exposition. It's really a testament to how those years mastering reaction shots taught him how to occupy space effectively on screen.
So by the 2010s, he'd successfully pivoted again, right, from the indispensable supporting player to actually headlining studio comedies. He anchored major box office successes like Horrible Bosses in 2011 and the sequel in 2014, Identity Thief in 2013 with Melissa McCarthy, and that fantastically executed ensemble thriller Game Night in 2018.
Yeah, Game Night is particularly interesting because it really showcased his ability to carry a mainstream blockbuster comedy, but without sacrificing the nuance of his, very dry performance style. Critics specifically singled him out for that one. He earned nominations for Best Performance by a comedic actor from the San Diego Film Critics Society Awards and the Critics' Choice Awards. He could lead, but he could lead by maintaining control, by never becoming excessively broad or, cartoonish.
And we shouldn't skip over his voice acting either, which also perfectly utilizes that controlled, intelligent delivery. He voiced Nick Wilde, the charming con artist Fox, in Disney's massive hit Zootopia back in 2016.
Oh, yeah, great character.
And that role earned him an Annie Award for voice acting, another major accolade proving that his particular delivery style translates across mediums really effectively.
And while all this massive commercial success was happening, the teenage director inside him was clearly stirring again. We have to connect this back to that DGA record.
Definitely.
Now that he had the financial stability, the industry clout, he started manufacturing his own directorial opportunities, really transitioning from being the hired actor to becoming the sort of self-appointed auteur.
And he didn't just ease into it, did he? He went straight into feature film directing. He made his feature debut directing and starring in that dark satire Bad Words in 2013, which centered on an adult exploiting this loophole to compete in a children's spelling bee.
Yeah.
Very.
Bateman.
Yes, very Bateman. And the subject matter of Bad Words, dark, a bit uncomfortable, highly controlled satire, that feels like a very deliberate choice. It signals his artistic ambition to avoid just broad, safe comedy. He followed that up by directing and starring in The Family Fang in 2015, which dealt with these complex performance artists and their dysfunctional adult children. Again, these were not generic comedies. They were small, respected kind of auteur projects where he was defining the visual grammar and the tone.
These films feel like crucial testing grounds, don't they? Allowing him to practice his craft, gain confidence before taking on the massive career-defining project that was about to follow. He wasn't waiting for someone else to greenlight his vision anymore. He was actively building it himself. Yet the shift that happens here it's almost unparalleled. Having spent a decade as the go-to comedy anchor, Bateman successfully shifted the entire narrative of his career again, transitioning fully into prestige drama and suspense.
It was quite the turn.
His roles in the 2012 thriller Disconnect and then headlining Joel Edgerton's really critically acclaimed suspense thriller The Gift in 2015, those were clear signals of his intention. He was actively shedding that purely comedic label for good.
And that pivot led directly to the Ozark phenomenon in 2017, which is arguably the most significant achievement of his entire adult career.
I'd agree with that.
He returned to television, but in this dual capacity, actor and director, for this incredibly dark Netflix crime drama.
And his portrayal of Marty Byrde, the calculated financial advisor who has to relocate his family to the Ozarks to launder money for a Mexican drug cartel. It's the ultimate evolution of the straight man character, isn't it?
Nope.
Michael Bluth was controlling the chaos of his family's finances. Marty Byrde is controlling the chaos of life-or-death organized crime. Both characters are just masters of analytical composure right in the face of imminent disaster.
The sources, they confirm the high praise he received, drawing these direct positive comparisons to Bryan Cranston's iconic portrayal of Walter White in Breaking Bad.
Right, which is huge praise.
Both ordinary men, driven by financial necessity, who find this unexpected, highly specific talent in the world of criminality. But Marty Byrde's character, he's defined by his internal control, whereas Walter White's character was more about his external combustion, right? Marty is always trying to keep the lid on.
That's a great distinction, and this is where the directorial achievements in Ozark truly shine. The most significant achievement of the whole Ozark run wasn't just the acting, which, earned him multiple Screen Actors Guild Awards for outstanding performance by a male actor in a drama series.
Yeah, multiple wins.
In 2018, 2020, and 2022.
Yeah.
It was the craft behind the camera.
We absolutely have to talk about the Emmy-winning work here. The sources really highlight that teenage DGA record paying off big time, decades later, when Bateman won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series in 2019 for the Ozark episode Reparations.
Yeah, that specific win just cemented his status as a legitimate contemporary auteur. We know from analyzing the show that Bateman's visual grammar is incredibly controlled, often quite cold.
Very distinct look.
He favored these muted, desaturated blue and gray color palettes, giving the show this distinct, cinematic aesthetic that people often compare to directors like, say, David Fincher or Michael Mann. His camera work often uses these slow, deliberate tracking shots, which really force the audience to absorb the tension, the claustrophobia, perfectly mirroring Marty Byrde's internal emotional state.
So he wasn't just acting in the scene, he was meticulously crafting the mood, the pace, the visual language of the entire show. That combination made him a true dual threat, a powerhouse actor guiding the whole production with this sharp, disciplined vision.
And speaking of that vision, his acceptance speech at the 2019 SAG Awards was actually incredibly powerful and really reflective of his own personal journey. He dedicated it to the working actors, those who are perpetually in that wilderness that he himself navigated back in the 90s.
Right. He delivered that incredibly memorable line. So I just want to say to the people that are at home and not working as frequently as they want, you're just one job away. You're plenty talented. Hang in there.
Yeah.
That statement, I mean, coming from a guy who spent 10 years struggling in failed pilots, it was just laced with personal empathy. It reinforced that he really understands the grind, the necessity of persistence in what can be a brutal industry.
And his focus now seems overwhelmingly on generating content, rather than just waiting for scripts to come his way. His production company, Aggregate Films, they've extended their lucrative deal with Universal, which means he's essentially a media executive now, steering development across both films and television.
His directorial pipeline reflects this new status, too. He served as an executive producer for that survival competition series Outlast in 2023, kind of diversifying his portfolio. And looking ahead, he's tapped to direct Netflix's high-profile film Dark Wire and also The Pinkerton for Warner Bros. And Bad Robot. I mean, these are major studio projects that demand a proven, powerful director.
And what's equally important, I think, and reinforces that deep commitment to creative control, are the projects he has actively walked away from.
Good point.
He backed out of directing the Clear remake, citing scheduling conflicts with Ozark, prioritizing his existing commitments, and furthermore, he famously departed Project Artemis, citing creative differences.
Right.
That's the ultimate sign of independence, isn't it? Moving past just taking any job to pay the bills and only engaging with projects where he feels he can execute his precise vision.
It's fascinating, though. While he's directing these intense, dark dramas, he simultaneously launched this massively successful, completely different kind of empire back in 2020, the Smartless podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of a genius move, really, leveraging those existing friendships and that natural chemistry with his Arrested Development co-star Will Arnett and Sean Hayes.
Great chemistry between them.
Totally. Launched in July 2020, Smartless is built around this simple, high-concept format. Each week, one of them surprises the other two with a mystery celebrity guest.
And that format just allows his dry, analytical wit to thrive in a completely unscripted environment. The sources highlight its massive commercial reach, too. Apple revealed Smartless was the #4 top show of the year in 2023.
Wow, #4.
Yeah, and that success quickly led to them forming Smartless Media in 2022, specifically to develop 4 additional podcasts. He successfully converted personal chemistry into this stable, diversified media platform.
It's just another manifestation of that recurring theme of controlled output, isn't it? Yeah. He's not just selling his likeness anymore. He's owning the content, the production, the distribution, creating multiple reliable revenue streams. He really moved from being managed to being the content generator himself to now becoming the media executive managing multiple platforms.
Beyond his professional work, his personal life seems to provide a lot of stability. He married the actress Amanda Anka, who's the daughter of singer Paul Anka, way back in 2001. They have 2 daughters. And the industry clearly recognizes his status. He was honored as the Hasty Pudding Man of the Year in 2022, which is kind of a sign that he's viewed as this durable, reliable Hollywood staple now. Big Dodgers fan, too, apparently.
Right. However, a genuine deep dive requires acknowledging that moment of really intense public scrutiny. The May 2018 New York Times interview surrounding Arrested Development.
Yes. That was a challenging moment. During that interview, Bateman, David Cross, and Tony Hale, they were criticized pretty heavily for appearing to defend Jeffrey Tambor's volatile behavior on set towards Jessica Walter, who was clearly visibly distressed during the conversation.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable to read.
The audience, particularly people who follow issues of workplace dynamics, reacted very swiftly and negatively.
And the sources seem to indicate that Bateman, maybe in attempting to manage the escalating tension of the interview itself, tried to analyze the cause of Tambor's behavior in this professional, almost diagnostic manner, which is a classic fixer reaction, right?
Interesting take.
But that move just backfired spectacularly because it seemed to minimize Walter's actual emotional experience in that moment.
The response, though, it was rapid and professional.
Yeah.
Bateman, Cross, and Hale all issued apologies within days of the interview's publication, demonstrating pretty swift accountability and, frankly, damage control.
Yeah, they did. And later, Bateman offered a retrospective assessment, acknowledging that he had overreached in his attempt to analyze the situation. This public misstep, It perfectly illustrates that inherent tension maybe in his personality,
Mm-hmm.
that analytical impulse that makes him a phenomenal director and a great Marty Byrde that need to diagnose a system sometimes gets in the way when maybe simple human empathy is what's required. It was a very public, probably painful lesson, but one he navigated relatively quickly, confirming his commitment to, self-correction when needed. Hashtag tag outro.
So, looking back across this entire career, the journey of Jason Bateman is really one of the most remarkable professional survival stories in Hollywood, I think. He navigated that treacherous shift from child star-fueled by that early financial anxiety and getting that massive DGA record through a truly chaotic decade of addiction and professional turbulence to emerge not just as a reliable actor, but as a genuine powerhouse director, producer, and, well, media executive.
Yeah, the core synthesis of this journey really is that he successfully moved from being managed by his father until he was 20 to becoming the absolute manager of his own creative output and his business interests. We see that incredible need for control reflected everywhere in the high-stakes, dramatic complexity he directs in Ozark,
Right.
and in the grounded, analytical, straight man persona he perfected on screen as Michael Bluth and Marty Byrde. He lived through the chaos, and now he seems perpetually driven to control it.
He is the ultimate fixer. He fixed the Bluth family's finances, he fixed the cartel's books, and ultimately he fixed his own career by taking the directorial chair.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. We see Jason Bateman consistently seeking out these roles of the fixer, the man who brings analytical order to existential chaos. Does his profound early career anxiety, that intense pressure to constantly secure the next job for his family's income, the pressure that literally made him abandon his high school finals, does that explain his deep, decades-long commitment to control?
Yeah.
Not just over his acting roles, but over the entire production, the directing, the business process. He truly moved from being managed to becoming the ultimate manager. And maybe that deep-seated need for control, possibly born of that early financial fear, is the undeniable fuel that continues to drive his sustained, constantly reinvented success today.